the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're digging into a really interesting mix of sources, all centered around marketability in the WNBA.
Yeah, it's quite the conversation that's been happening.
Exactly. We've got a piece from RedState looking at comments from Aja Wilson, from the Las Vegas Aces. She spoke to the New York Times.
And there's also a time column involved, right? The one naming Caitlin Clark Athlete of the Year.
That's the one. Plus some mentions of Clark on David Letterman's show on Netflix.
Okay.
So our mission here really is to unpack these different viewpoints. We want to understand the arguments around what makes a player marketable in the WNBA, especially how race and individual success kind of play into that, based purely on what these sources are telling us.
And what strikes me right away is just how differently marketability itself is framed. You've got Aja Wilson, a super accomplished player, basically saying race is a huge factor in how she's marketed, or maybe not marketed. And then you have RedState, which, is a conservative outlet pushing back. They seem to emphasize individual achievement, maybe downplaying those systemic factors.
Okay, let's start with Aja Wilson's perspective then. Her comments in the New York Times really kicked off this specific round of discussion. She was actually talking about getting her own signature shoe deal with Nike, which is huge.
Yeah, a major achievement.
But she said, and this is a direct quote, it's 100% about race. And it's one of those things where we can sit there and say that all the time, but there's going to always be someone that's like, well, no, you're just making it about race.
So very direct. She clearly feels that even with, 2 championships, 3 MVPs.
Exactly. Stacked resume.
That her marketability isn't where it maybe should be. And she attributes that to being a Black woman.
Yeah.
And the context is key. Like you said, she's saying this while announcing this big shoe deal.
Yeah.
But there's also that earlier quote mentioned in the timepiece from an AP interview.
Oh, right. What was that?
She said something like, "It doesn't matter what we all do as Black women, we're still going to be swept underneath the rug. That's why it boils my blood when people say it's not about race, because it is." So it suggests this is a longer-standing frustration for her.
A deeper feeling, yeah. It reflects a conversation that seems to be ongoing in the league about recognition for Black players.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's Wilson's position as presented. Now, how does the RedState article respond? Because they came in pretty strong.
They did. Their article frames her comments as whining and calls her race-obsessed. Pretty loaded language there.
Wow, okay.
They really hone in on the fact that she did get the signature shoe deal. They use that to challenge her claim that race is holding back her marketability.
So their counter is, look, you got the deal. How can you say race is the issue?
Basically, yeah. And they broaden the argument by listing several extremely famous and marketable Black athletes from U.S. history: Jordan, LeBron, Serena, Tiger Woods.
Right, the household names.
Their point seems to be that race isn't an insurmountable barrier to marketability, citing these examples.
Okay, so RedState's angle is more about individual factors. Merit, personality, maybe.
Exactly. They bring up Michael Jordan specifically. They talk about his personality, his huge Nike deal, the whole Air Jordan phenomenon.
Right, the brand.
The implication seems to be that maybe other factors besides race are impacting Wilson's marketability, although they don't really spell out what those might be for her. They're suggesting success and charisma can overcome racial barriers.
This is where it gets even more complicated, though, because the RedState piece brings up this timeline detail about the Nike deals.
Ah, yes, the timing. This was interesting.
Apparently, according to the article, Wilson knew about her own signature shoe, the A1, for several months before Caitlin Clark's deal was announced publicly.
Right. And that's significant because a lot of the initial noise around Clark's deal was precisely about a white rookie getting a shoe before established Black stars like Wilson.
Exactly. So RedState criticizes Wilson for staying quiet about her own deal while that narrative was swirling. They suggest she let people believe there was racial bias against her regarding the shoe deals.
That definitely adds a complex layer. If she knew her deal was coming, her silence during that period, it makes you reevaluate that initial public reaction, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests the story might have been more nuanced than just Nike chose the white rookie over the Black veteran. the timing of announcements, who knew what when,
Yeah.
it gets messy.
Very messy. And it highlights how narratives can form and spread, maybe without all the facts on the table.
Okay, let's switch over to Caitlin Clark's perspective now. As RedState points out, she was kind of at the center of this firestorm, right?
Yeah, unwillingly perhaps, but definitely central to the discussion.
The initial take from some corners was, like we said, how does a white rookie get a shoe deal first? It must be race. But then this info about Wilson knowing beforehand complicates that.
It does, but what's really interesting is what Clark herself said. In that time column, she actually addressed white privilege.
Oh, what did she say?
She said, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. And she went on to acknowledge the black players who built the league. She said, a lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them.
Wow. Okay, so she directly acknowledged it.
Yeah, and she apparently said something similar on David Letterman's show, too. She seems aware of the context she's stepping into.
That's quite a statement. How did RedState react to that?
Well, the article criticizes her for it. It suggests she shouldn't feel the need to, quote, apologize for her achievements.
So polar opposite interpretations there. Clark sees it as acknowledging reality and history. RedState sees it as unnecessary apology.
Seems like it. It really highlights the different ways people view the intersection of individual success and these broader societal issues like race and privilege. Is acknowledging privilege showing awareness, or is it diminishing your own hard work? Very different takes.
Okay, let's try and bring these threads together. We have Wilson feeling strongly that race impacts marketability even as she gets a major deal.
Right?
We have Clark acknowledging privilege and the league's history while being the focus of debate about fairness in marketing. And we have RedState arguing marketability is mostly individual, using historical examples and being critical of both Wilson's and Clark's statements on race.
And the whole timeline thing with the shoe deals adds another wrinkle to how we interpret Wilson's initial comments versus the public reaction.
Yeah, it feels like different people are looking at the same situation and seeing very different driving forces. Wilson points to systemic issues.
RedState points to individual merit and achievement, almost suggesting those negate systemic issues if you're successful enough.
And Clark seems to be trying to hold space for both her own success and the larger context.
It's a complex picture. RedState also made that point about our white players on Jordan's Bulls teams, like Paxson and Kerr, not getting signature shoes.
Right. Their argument being that Nike's decisions weren't primarily race-based even then. It was about Jordan's unique appeal.
They use it to suggest performance, and maybe that sort of X factor are the key drivers for these big deals, more so than race.
But I guess the counter-argument is, can you ever fully separate race from perception and opportunity in marketing?
Exactly. While performance and personality are obviously huge, dismissing race entirely seems, well, difficult. The history of sports marketing isn't always neutral.
And the fact that the reaction to Clark's deal immediately went to race suggests those questions about fairness and bias are still very much alive for people.
Absolutely. It shows these are sensitive, live issues.
Okay, so wrapping up the main points. Wilson knew about her shoe deal earlier. Both players spoke about race, but differently. RedState pushed back hard against the idea of race as a primary barrier, criticizing the players' comments.
Yeah, I think this dive really shows just how tangled these issues are. You've got personal experiences, media spin, different ideologies all clashing over what drives success and recognition in the WNBA.
It really underscores how hard it is to pin down exactly what factors make an athlete marketable and how much weight each factor carries.
Definitely.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We've talked a lot about race and athletic achievement influencing marketability. But what else is really in that mix? Think about things beyond just those two.
Yeah, like media coverage, how much they get, what kind of stories are told about them.
Or their social media presence, right? How they engage there.
Definitely. And what about the team they play for? The size of that market, the fan base's passion.
Good point. And maybe even the specific narratives the media or marketers choose to build around them. How might all those elements interact with, or even overshadow race and on-court success when it comes to who gets promoted and how?
It's definitely not a simple equation. Lots to consider there.